We've had this problem ever since moving in this house, and it's when people come to see us and they're wearing a coat, they've got nowhere to put it when they come in. So I thought I'd take care of that problem today by going over to my wide board stash that I've got here in this little stack over by my CNC and picking out this pretty good looking piece of red oak and make a coat rack. So to get started, I'm going to need insulation, the red oak, track saw, what else? Oh yeah, PPE. So to get started on this piece, I'm going to cut this slab of red oak. Well, it's not really a slab, it's just a really wide piece of red oak. So just a wide board. I'm going to use the track saw, cut it to about 12 inches wide. Needless to say, you don't need a track saw for this. You could use a circular saw and a straight edge. But then I went over to my table saw with my crosscut sled and used a 1-2-3 setup block and a stop block to cut all of the pieces for this coat rack. You'll see I'm using a 1.5 inch spacer, and that is because I wanted the coat rack part of these pieces to be 1.5 inches. With all the pieces cut, I needed to do a final sand on them just because I wanted to make them really nice and smooth. So I got out the Mirka and sanded up to 400 grit, just nice and smooth. With everything nice and smooth, I wanted to cut the 45-degree angles on the back side of the coat racks. So set up the miter saw with a stop block and pretty much just cut all those 45s. Now you'll notice I've got a sacrificial fence on my miter saw, and that's so I get a little bit cleaner cuts. It's not the best miter saw, but she's treated me right. With all of those miters cut, I could then pull out that extension and make a line and then bring over my Rockler center line finder. I think, is that what they call it? Honestly, I don't remember. But I did learn you have to make sure the pencil lead is sticking out so you can mark that center line. And with that center line, I was able to find where I want to put the dowel rods that I'm going to drill out for here on my drill press. I just set up real quick with the table that I've got on my drill press, and I was able to quickly repeat this exact same hole in all of these pieces. Now I didn't go all the way through on the parts that were going to be stationary on the wall, and that's just because I didn't have a dowel rod that was going to be long enough to go through the entire piece. And when I was dry fitting everything, I noticed that the angle of the bottom 45 was not a steep enough angle to make the rack actually work. So I brought out the oscillating spindle sander and sanded it down. And here is where the dowel rod is going to go, right through that center. I guess you call it the hook. It's not really a hook, but that's what you're going to hook your jacket onto. So I'm going to call it a hook. It goes all the way through the center of that and then halfway into the stationary parts. And then you'll see here you just push down and the hook comes up. Push down and the hook's up. Simple as that. So I decided I wanted to be a little bit fancy with everything on the face side of the coat rack, and I put a miniature chamfer on everything. I thought about doing a round over, but I think the chamfer looks a little bit nicer in this situation, and it just feels good to the touch. So with all the chamfers cut, I was going to then dye it black. Of course, it's what I do. But it does match everything else in our house, and this is going in my house, so black it is. I've been using India ink a lot, but since doing a bass guitar black with leather dye, I have really grown to love this Angelus leather dye. This is jet black, and let me just say, it is jet black. Only needs one coat on these porous woods like this redwood, and it turns a redwood, which not too many people like, into a really dark, rich, grain showing wood that is a lot more pleasant to look at. So with that done and dried, I'm going to add a little bit of glue inside these stationary pieces, just a little bit of quick and thick. I don't want to lock it all together. I just want the sides that are going to be stationary to hold that dowel still so that those coat racks can pop out in and out no problem. Now you see me using this clamp to hold everything square at the bottom, and that's a good thing. But I also noticed that it really made the coat racks kind of hard to push in and pull out. And that's not what I want. I need it to be a little bit looser. So with it being that tough, I decided it was probably better if I took the clamp off and then worked it just a little bit to where it was nice and smooth. So I moved these coat racks up and down, probably 3 or 4 times each, and then locked them down into the closed position so I could spray some lacquer. I got 3 coats of lacquer on this before it was all said and done, and I realized as I'm watching this that it looks like they're not sitting level, and you know they're not. And that's because I only supported about half of those stationary blocks, and I didn't support any of the coat racks, so they are kind of sagging a little bit here and there, but everything's flush, I promise. After the lacquer dried and off camera, I added some keyholes to the back of the coat rack and then put some drywall anchors in the wall so I could hang this thing up. I did notice that the racks are kind of stiff still, but I fully expect them to loosen up over time, and actually I'll probably just leave them open anyways because I've got 3 kids and they've always got coats, so we'll be hanging stuff up all the time. I loved how this thing turned out and how simple it is. Now when people come and visit us, or when my kids come in from outside, they'll have a place to hang their jacket or their hat. Thanks for watching, everybody. Now go build it and film it. See you on the next one.